You're listening to Unlocked Your Career by Design with Samantha Florence, Fortune 100 executive, billion-dollar business leader, and founder of Powerhouse Code. Here, you'll discover how to build authority, attract opportunities, and lead with authentic presence. If you're ready to claim your spotlight and step into your next level, you're in the right place. Let's unlock your career by design. I want to update my leadership profile and stay relevant in the job market. The other day, I was talking with somebody who said this exact same sentence. Now, this sentence has so much to unpack. I want to update my leadership profile. Full stop. I'm going to talk about that. To stay relevant. Full stop. I'm going to talk about that. In the job market, the third thing I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about updating your leadership profile. Now, in essence, I love that sentence. Why? Because we're not talking about, I want to update my resume or I want to upskill. I want to have another degree. No, I want to update my leadership profile. Therefore, what type of leader am I? What do I stand for? What am I known for when it comes to the impact I drive for my team, for my organization, for the business or the projects that we are running as an organization? And so starting with updating your leadership profile is an excellent step to take. However, when I asked further, I said, okay, what do you mean by updating your leadership profile? Then it came. Well, I'm thinking about upskilling, getting another degree. And I said, why? Well, then I'm more competitive. Then I stand out more in a competitive job market. And I'm like, okay, I get why you're saying that. And this is the mistake I see so many professionals make. This is going to go down as I was thinking this is the number 2 mistake, but it might become the number 1 mistake. The number 1 mistake. I want to update my leadership profile. Therefore, I'm going to upskill by getting another degree or doing another study, because more credentials equals more credibility and relevance in the job market. Wrong way of thinking. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, people do not hire on credentials. And I keep talking about this because we have been conditioned to go to school for 14 years. No, yes, 14 years until you graduate to go to college. Another 4 to 5 years, depending on the country you're in. So let's say 18 to 19 years of conditioning. The better you study, the more successful you are. The more credentials, the more successful you are. The more degrees, the more successful you are. How many people do you know that have 3 MBAs? And how many people do you know that do not have 3 MBAs and are doing the exact same role? How many people do you know that have 3 MBAs and are still doing a job living from paycheck to paycheck? And how many people do you know that maybe don't even have an Ivy League university degree and are crushing it in the C-suite? Do you get what I'm saying here? And so I'm a huge fan, huge, of continuing to develop yourself, putting yourself out there, absorbing knowledge, expanding your skill set and your knowledge, but do not do it thinking that will automatically update your leadership profile or lead to the next role. Okay? So I want to be very clear here what I'm saying. Updating your leadership profile, yes. Getting more degrees and credentials to continue to develop yourself and grow and expand your knowledge and experience, absolutely. But if you're doing it only in order to make you more competitive in the job market, that's a hard no for me. I have seen hundreds and hundreds of job applicants and resume, and let me tell you, very, very, I don't think I think more times no than yes do I scroll down to the bottom to see their degrees. Because I don't care about degrees. And most executives don't care about degrees. They care about results. They care about how are you going to drive value to this organization? How are you going to increase revenue? How are you going to reduce expenses? How are you going to make us work more productively and effectively? How are you going to build a culture that drives the team forward? How are you going to how? You don't need a degree necessarily to do that. You can build your leadership profile in different ways. Okay, that's number one. Number two was becoming more relevant. What does that mean? There is so much fear about being outdated, that your job is going to be taken over by AI, not being relevant. Calm down. Because if your attention goes to, I'm going to be made redundant in the reorganization, AI is going to take over my job. I took a sabbatical for 6 months, therefore, I have a gap on my resume. Okay, if you put your energy and attention on those things, it will definitely happen. Your job will be replaced by AI. That gap on your CV, on your resume, people are not going to be able, not want to hire you anymore or invite you for interviews. So, whatever you think is the negative thing that's going to happen, you're calling it in because you're putting it out in the universe. So let's look at the flip side. AI, hell yes, AI makes our lives more easy, does the manual tasks, and creates expansion and space to add even more value and be even more effective. So, how are you going to embrace AI, or how can you embrace AI instead of being concerned that it will replace your job? That's number one. Number two, you've been on a sabbatical for 6 months. That's a tough decision to make. What did that teach you, or what did you learn about leadership, about work life balance, about creating cultures where it's not only about delivering, it's about work life balance? Because work life balance and well being, what does that do to productivity? So, see how by giving it a different spin and attaching a different mindset to it, it's a completely different way of experiencing it. Because coming back to, I want to build my leadership profile to stay relevant in the job market, is that coming from a place of fear, or is that coming from a place of trust? Trust in your own capabilities, trust in what you have to bring is valuable, trust that you are the best person for this role, for the next role. Because if you don't have the trust, how are the hiring managers supposed to have the trust? If you believe that you're not going to be relevant anymore, if you don't get yet another degree, if you don't update your polished LinkedIn profile with more credentials, then how is somebody else supposed to trust in your capabilities and competencies? Number three, the job market. OMG. I cringe at the word job. Why? It sounds like it's made for a robot. And yes, AI could probably do your job. And that's why I always talk about roles, about an assignment. Because when you start thinking about a role or assignment, now all of a sudden it's a project. It's something you can solve. You have skills and value to bring to a role, to an assignment. Technically to a job as well. But job, I just find it sounds like a factory worker. We don't do that. We do roles, we do leadership, we do executive mindset. At least in this podcast at the Powerhouse Code. So, how do I build a leadership profile to stay relevant in the job market? How about replacing that with, how do I showcase my leadership profile so it's clear to my leaders, and that's whether it's in your own company or a new company, the value I bring and how I am the only person who can drive this team, this business, and this organization forward. See this mindset shift change here again. This is an executive mindset. Oh my God, I need an. No, you don't. You don't need another degree. You are a leader. Leaders don't need endless credentials and degrees. Leaders know how to solve problems, how to approach every role or assignment or project as a business partner. What value do I bring? What problem do I solve? And how do I drive my team, my business, and my organization forward? And then how can I make sure the right people know about it? And things that I don't know as a leader, how do I leverage the strengths and the skill set and the competencies of my team? Yes, but I don't have a team. I'm not a manager. I'm not a leader yet. You are part of a team. If you are a freelancer, you can say that. But if you work at an organization that has more than one employee, you have a team, whether they are your direct reports or not. Okay. And this is also part of leadership behaviors and executive mindset. How do you lead to others, whether they report to you or not? How do you leverage the competencies and the strengths in a team, whether or not you are the manager? Because leadership doesn't start with a title. And so when you're thinking about, I need more credentials or degrees to build my leadership profile, to update my leadership profile, perhaps a better question to ask is, how can I step into leadership behavior starting now? How can I position myself for leadership starting now without a degree, without more credentials? See what I'm doing here? I want you to shift from an employee mindset. The word employee, the word job, those are like, that's not going to get you to your next level. Imagine thinking like an executive, like a leader, even if you don't have the title, even if you don't have the team, even if you don't know everything yet. Do you think that the world leaders know everything? I think honestly, they don't. Doesn't matter. It's about how do you feel confident making decisions when times are uncertain? How do you make decisions despite uncertainty? How do you communicate effectively? So you can come with your AI credential, you can do another degree, you can get a job. It will probably help you get a job. But we're not here to get jobs. We're here to build equity over our 30 to 40-year career trajectory. And that starts with a strong leadership profile that is tied to an executive mindset. Because you're not a factory worker. You're not here to clock in every morning, clock out at the end of the day, and check off your list. Did I do my job today? Did I fulfill all the tasks on my job description? If that's you, this is not the right podcast for you to listen. However, if you are the professional who wants to drive more impact, more influence, more responsibility, get a seat at a table, have more decision-making authority, then this is the right podcast for you. And I'm going to help you to step into that leadership persona, that leadership profile, and cultivate an executive mindset. That's it. Easy peasy. Well, not really easy peasy. It took me 18 years. But you can do it faster, which is why I started this podcast in the first place, okay? I don't want you to take 18 years. I want you to take 60 days. That's what it takes to cultivate a mindset. All right, that's it for today. In the next episodes, I'm going to talk about a leadership influence operating system. And I'm also going to be hosting a masterclass coming up. What day is it today? It's going to come up the week of January 19th. And there's going to be a couple of masterclasses in Q1 that really talks about how do you step into leadership positions? How do you build that leadership profile so you can attract roles with greater impact, more influence, and decision-making authority without selling yourself, dragging your way to the top, or overworking because you feel you need to overcompensate. And I would love to see you there. I would also love if you have any feedback, topics you want to see covered, let me know, DM me on LinkedIn or on the Instagrams, on the gram. It sounds so cool. And DM me anytime on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I will answer your questions on what it really takes to lead at that next level. Okay? We're not here to stay an employee for 40 years in your career. We're here to help you become a leader that leaves a legacy. Let's go. You have been listening to Unlocked Your Career by Design with Samantha Florence. If today's episode sparked something, here's your next step. Follow the show and leave a 5-star review. That's how we reach more ambitious women ready to break barriers. And if you know a colleague or friend who needs this, share it with them because lifting one woman lifts us all. Until next week, keep owning your spotlights.